Welcome, everyone, to the Fright Corner podcast. I'm your host, John, and this is episode 4. On this episode, I'm going to cover the 1973 classic haunted house movie, The Legend of Hell House. But first, I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to give some thoughts on some shows I've been watching here lately, and one of them being the biggest one, The Walking Dead, with the finale right around the corner. The shows I've been watching have been Bates Motel, which I've watched from the beginning, and I'm really enjoying this season. There's only 3 episodes left. I think that we're seeing the evolution of Norman. He's becoming the Norman Bates we all know from the Psycho movies. And I think if I read that right, there's only one more season after this, and if you know the story of the original Psycho, you know how it's probably going to end for the series. Unless they change that up, and I mean, it's very possible they could, but I don't see them doing that. I see them going out with a bang, with the original story of how Norman ends up his way. And as for that show, I do enjoy the actors and actresses in it. I think the one that plays Norman's mom is really good. She does a wonderful job. Of course, she was in The Conjuring as Lorraine Warren, and she'll be back in The Conjuring 2 this summer as Lorraine Warren again. The guy that's playing Norman, he's British, which is fine. He does a great accent to get that look of Norman and the sound. I mean, his presence, it really works for me to see him that way, because it seems like he has that presence to look like the Norman Bates we know. And the other show I've been watching here lately has been, it's only 3 episodes in, but it's Damien, which is also on A&E, and it shows up right after Bates Motel on Mondays. I'm enjoying it because I did like the original Omen. I didn't care for the other 2 Omen movies that came after that. The remake, I wasn't really real thrilled about. It wasn't bad. Nothing wrong with it. Just, I really enjoyed that original because I thought the acting in the original was really well done. Anyway, what I'm getting at is I really like this Damien show because it pays homage to the original Damien. He sees flashbacks and stuff of the original Omen movie, and I do like that because it seems like they're picking up after that, where he has grown up and becoming much more. He's learning about himself. It's like he kind of forgot who he was during that time in between the original movie and the TV series. But I would definitely recommend it if you like the Omen movie, the original Omen movie. I think you'd probably enjoy this series. Okay, now for the biggest one, it's The Walking Dead. Now, I've been watching the show since the start, and to tell you the truth, I've been looking forward to seeing how they're going to bring Negan to the screen. I really like that they cast Jeffrey Dean Morgan to play the character. Of course, we've seen him in Watchmen. He played kind of a small part in that one, but he was pretty good in that. He was in that first season of Supernatural, maybe in a little bit of the second season as the brother's father. He kind of had a short run on that one, but not too bad. And of course, here recently he was in Batman vs. Superman, where he was Bruce's father, and also Lauren Cohen was Bruce's mother in that shot, and it took me a little bit to realize who it was, but I figured it out after seeing it. Anyway, but of course, some of us have read the comics, and we know what Negan's like. We know that he's very unleashed in the comics. He's very vulgar. He's spoken out real well in the comics, and I'm just kind of curious to see how they're going to project that into the series, because obviously it's on cable. They have some restrictions. Although I think that when it gets to that point at night, the FCC kind of needs to back off. They've backed off quite a bit. But I really think they need to back off a little bit more for Negan to really have the full effect. And of course, as we know, this Sunday is the season finale. It'll be 90 minutes, and we're finally going to see Negan on screen for the first time. And I'm just curious to see how this is going to play out, because obviously they haven't followed the comics exact. And of course, as we've seen, in the comics, Glenn is the one that Negan kills after he picks him out of the 5 that are tied up there. Now, obviously Glenn would be the easy answer, but I really think there's some misdirection there. I think they had the chance to kill Glenn earlier, and they got a lot of backlash on that. And I still have a hard time believing that none of those zombies got him, even though there's a body across him. There's no way. And besides that, the gap with the dumpster wasn't that wide in the first shot, and then the next time we see him, he's able to crawl under there and hide out. just hard for me to believe, but I think that they done that, and just I wonder if maybe they were just testing the waters to see what fans' reaction would be. And of course, as we've seen on social media and everything, there was a lot of backlash out there about Glenn getting killed. So that leaves us with a few other options in this series. First off, Carol has ran off. For whatever reason, she's gone flaky, so I don't see that as any big loss because I think she's more of a liability now. Of course, we've seen Rick and Morgan go after Carol, and we did see the savior that was following them. Rick is coming back to Alexandria, and he didn't run into the savior, so I'm assuming he hid. But that also leaves to wonder if the savior is going to maybe catch up and capture Morgan and Carol, and that could be also part of it. Because obviously Glenn and Michonne have been captured by Dwight, who we all know has something to do with Negan anyway. And also Daryl and Rosita have been captured. So that gives us some options of what could happen. Now, one theory is, everybody that Rick seems to fall in love with seems to get killed pretty quick. His wife was killed. The gal in Alexandria he was really liking, she's dead. So we could throw it out there that Michonne's the one that gets killed because she's in love with Rick, and that's been kind of the storyline they've been going for. Of course, Glenn, I just don't think that's the obvious one. I just think it's a lot of misdirection on that point, as I said earlier. Rosita, she's not been a very big character in it. So I don't think the impact of her getting killed would be what they wanted to see. I don't think it would work as well. And of course, if the Savior, like I said, does capture Morgan or Carol, Morgan is kind of a big character, but not really. He's not been in it too much, so, if they killed him off, I don't think it would have the same effect either. Carol might, because Carol has been around since the beginning, and that could have a huge effect on it. And it's very possible she could be the one that gets killed. I don't think it's going to be any discriminate of who gets killed. Obviously, in the show, they have no problem killing the main characters. Now, the big one that everybody thinks is Daryl is going to be killed. Of course, we've seen in the last episode he did get shot. Now, that could be a good thing, though, because that may leave it more apt that he will probably survive it. However, there's other issues and stuff they've talked about, that he has a new show he's going to be starring in. There was talk that he put his house in Atlanta up for sale, which is where they filmed The Walking Dead at. And I've noticed in this season that there hasn't been much use of Daryl. Seems like everything he's kind of done, he's made a few mistakes, such as letting Dwight live and thinking that he could help people and everything. And as we've seen, that he regrets that. But really, he hasn't played a huge part in the series this season. And even some of last season wasn't too major either. So, I'm kind of wondering if maybe his story arc is done, and they are going to execute Daryl as the example. And of course, at the beginning of the second half of the sixth season, he did kill a bunch of Negan's men. And that could have something to do with it too. He's still sour about that. Dwight has issues with him, probably wants revenge on him. And also, he was there with the raid they did on their other compound when they killed all them guys. So, signs point to Daryl, but I still question it. Obviously, they don't follow the comics exact. Such as we've seen, Abraham didn't get killed on the tracks like in the comics. So, I don't know. I'd throw it out there that Morgan may be the one that gets killed. It could possibly be Michonne, because that would be real traumatic to Rick. And I could see him really losing it over it, seeing how they have their little love affair going on. But I just don't know. I just don't know if that's efficient enough. Obviously, a lot of people are saying, well, if they killed Daryl, I'm not watching the show no more. And a lot of them probably will not watch the show. And, all honesty, I don't know how much longer they can really go with it. How much can a zombie decompose? We're getting away from the zombies anyway. But anyway, I'm going to throw it out there that I think that it could either easily be Michonne, Daryl, or Morgan. I just don't think they're going to kill Glenn. I think that part of the story, they tried to do it, and they kind of tested the waters, and they drew back. They probably had different options, because you'd never really seen what happened. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth of the show and the finale coming up. I'm looking forward to it, and I may be eating crow. It may be none of them. It could be somebody completely different. But hey, that's what makes this show fun, is you can guess around all you want and see what happens. So, as I said, on this episode, I'm going to be reviewing a haunted house movie. And I thought it'd be kind of neat to get into what is a haunted house and some of the more famous haunted houses here in America, which I'm more familiar with. And what I can say is a haunted house, we can define it as a house or any other building, could be a hospital, psych ward, whatever, insane asylum. That's a good one that's always used in movies. That is, anyway, it's one of them that's being haunted by spirits of dead people. And they could have been residents of the property or very familiar with the place that is being haunted. And many times the haunting is caused by people who have died in violent ways, suicide, or accidental. So, for me, that fits the definition of a good horror movie. It kind of fits into that paranormal subgenre of horror, ghost, and I really enjoy haunted house movies. I really do. They're some of my favorite movies. Now, anyway, what I was looking at, there are some of the more famous haunted houses out here in America. There was the Winchester House, the White House, the Myrtle's Plantation, Franklin Castle, the Whaley House, and the Basilica Axe Murder House. And those are just a few. There's many others out there. I did not include Amityville because that's still a controversy up in the air, because I have heard interviews with the lawyer and the Lutzes that they kind of made it up over a couple bottles of wine and wrote the book and called it good. So I didn't mention that house. That's for you to research and find out what you want. And you're more than welcome to research any of these others that I've mentioned, because I'm not really going to get into it right now because we are doing a movie review. But if you like the supernatural, I have been a guest on the Edge of Earth podcast. Go check it out. He does a lot of supernatural, paranormal, UFO sightings, just a little bit of everything. Pretty good show. Like I said, I've been on there a couple of times. Just check it out if you want. Okay, on to the movie review. The Legend of Hell House was released in 1973, and at the time it was actually rated PG. It was directed by John Hugh, and it was written by Richard Matheson, who in turn also wrote the novels, so I felt that worked real well because I did read the novel and I enjoyed the novel. I think it held over to the screenplay real well. It really followed the book a lot. And the plot of this movie is, I'll just read it here. Scientist Lionel Barrett and his wife Anne lead a team into the infamous Belasco house, supposedly haunted by the victims of its late owner, a notorious killer. Though the rational Barrett does not believe in ghosts, the other members of his group do, including devoted spiritualist Florence Tanner and physical medium Ben Fisher, who has been in the Belasco house before and seen what horrors can befall those who enter it. That's just a quick plot summary, pretty straightforward. And the first thing I want to say, I really enjoyed this movie, even though it was filmed over 42 years ago. And it seemed to me it really stood the test of time. And the 70s were one of them eras that if you had a good movie, it was good, or if it was bad, it was really bad. There seemed to be not a lot of in-between movies that you could get into. Another like I had of this movie is you have four main characters that you keep track of. You have their stories. And I like that because you're not torn apart with 10 different characters trying to be developed. They develop very quickly. They establish who they are at the beginning, and that works really well, so you understand what they're doing in the movie. And it's oftentimes they explain it in the movie as it goes. And as for the house, wow. It was a character on its own. I love the setup of the house. I love the shots that we had. It was a huge mansion. And I like the fact that we got to see different parts of it. We've seen the dining room, the entry, the chapel, the basement, many other places, the bedrooms. And I really like the shots of it. I like the way it looked. And I loved the feeling you got. You knew it was creepy. You knew the place was haunted. You knew what you were getting into. And it worked really well because the actors really worked well together. Had real good chemistry on there, which made the movie real fun to watch. And also, I consider the pace of the movie was pretty good, and it didn't take long to really get into it. You have the timestamps coming on the screen, and it's just moving. When they get there, stuff starts happening. They sit down, have a slight lunch or dinner. They're sitting down doing psychic readings that night. And I love the effects were so practical, but they were executed well. You had tables lifting,